What up, ladies and gentlemen? Here with another incredible interview. Another one that I've been wanting to do for a long time. Soul League's fellow legends. And At this interview, I have to give much thanks to my social studies teacher, Mr. G, because me and him bonded a lot over music. And one day in the middle of the year, he was like, "There's this band called ISIS. I think you may enjoy." And I've been deteriorating from there. It's been, my life's just gone downhill. It's been sucky, but I have ISIS with me. So here with Mr. Aaron Turner, this new project, Sumac. Welcome.
Thank you. Sumac doesn't really feel new at this point since it's 10
Well,
years
yeah.
old, but I guess and the larger picture of what I've spent my adult life doing, I could still fall under that category.
Which is insane to think, our lifespans are getting longer and longer by the minute, but still 10 years, goes by in an instant. I
That
can't
sure
remember
does.
like last year.
I know the feeling.
It's pretty scary. But how are you doing?
I'm good. Got home from the most recent Sumac tour a little less than a week ago and have been spending time with my family and catching up on the work that I missed while I was gone and enjoying the summer weather we've got around here.
Where are you? Are you in California?
I live outside Seattle, in a place called
Nice.
Vashon. So kind of it's not completely rural, but definitely out in the woods essentially.
Yeah, that's my favorite part of where I live, Georgia, is just being in the woods and being far away from anyone else. Especially when you're with your friends and you're just playing fucking card games all night. That's like I don't think anything can really top that. And everyone's passing around the guitar and no one knows how to play the guitar. Everyone's just passing
Uh-huh.
it around and playing random shit. And it's just the best memories I think I make when I'm farthest away from the people I love and just with random ass people. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
But I want to give you congrats on Sumac's latest release, which is an absolutely insane piece of work.
Thank
I was
you.
listening to it last night at 3 a.m. and it's just like a complete amalgamation of everything I love, and it's just weird. And like the beginning of the album and end of the album are just like perfect, and there's like certain chunky parts and there's certain existential parts, and it's just like a 10 out of 10 project in a whole. So I really have to congratulate you on that.
Well, thank
So
you. I appreciate that.
one of the things I know a lot of people were wondering is about the Stones' Turn, which is like a behemoth. Even though they're all kind of behemoth songs, I feel like that is really the behemoth of the album. How long did it take for you to compose and record that song specifically?
Uh, it didn't It actually probably came the quickest of all the compositions on the record, and that was because it came last. And I think sometimes the writing process just goes that way, where it takes a while to get into it and to find um, the the stream, as it were, of ideas and get on board for that. Um, but by the time I got to working on the foundation for that song, all the rest of the record had been written, and I felt like the channel was fully open. And that one was probably the least, it felt the most fluid and the least arduous to put together. Uh, we did struggle with it a little bit in the studio, probably more than the others. Um, there's a lot of different ways each of those parts could be interpreted, and I think as a group, there was some difficulty in finding the right form for everybody to take. Um, and then once we did figure it out and have a little sit down moment where we analyzed what was happening, where the problems were, and what the possibilities were for opening it up, then it really moved in a really cool direction ultimately. And I think that moment of minor crisis in the studio was actually a good thing because it just gave us an opportunity to reassess and then consider the fact that creative freedom is what this whole project is about, and you can really embrace that and find new ways of doing things, or you can get stuck on thinking that something needs to be a certain way and get trapped in that. And we were able to get out of that and find the ultimate place where it needed to go.
Yeah, that's what really inspired me, I think, is the fact that it's so improvisational, it's so fluid. Like the whole album really is. And as someone who doesn't like to play by the books, I like to just, go along and do whatever feels right in the moment. That just completely opened my eyes. And it was interesting what you said about crises, which is like, or crises, I guess the plural of that, but um, how do you capitalize on a crisis in your life, whether, it's good or bad? And how do you capitalize and make it the best and to turn yourself inside out to create a beautiful piece of art?
Um, one of the things I have learned, especially in the last decade or two of my life, is that those moments of being really challenged by whatever is transpiring in my life, whether it's on a personal level or a creative level, um, to put it in a kind of I don't know. I learned this from an elder of mine who taught me a lot of stuff, and he was fond of slogans, which sometimes can be problematic, but in this case was very helpful. He said that challenges were an opportunity for growth. And I really took that to heart. It was something I needed to hear at the moment that he passed that on to me, and it's applicable to so many things. And it's also applicable to this particular record because a lot of the thematic content is about those moments in life where we face a particularly difficult challenge and then have the opportunity to make a choice. And the choice can lead us in a lot of different directions. But I was specifically thinking about um, directions away from destruction and self-destruction and towards healing and self-love and self-acceptance. And I think that that's what we have the ability to do in a lot of challenging circumstances, is consider how that difficulty might give us an opportunity not only to do something differently in that particular situation, but how to do something different in our lives overall that might lead us away from the things that have been painful and caused us or others suffering, and towards something that's more productive and in tune with the life force.
Beautiful. I need to start working on more words to say after people say incredible stuff like that, but speechless. And would you ever consider mentoring a young student, whether it be in an instrument or maybe like growling or composition?
I think I would. The challenge for me at the moment in terms of figuring out how to incorporate that into my life is the fact that I'm raising a child of my own, and um, he is an incredibly willful and interesting individual, and he's also really demanding in certain ways, and so. Currently, I feel like I'm sort of at max capacity in terms of having my own life and fulfilling my own aspirations, and also being a guide and a shepherd to him as he is entering the world. Um, if there comes a time, which I certainly hope will be the case, when he's a little bit more independent and doing more on his own, that's mentoring some younger people would be something I would definitely be interested in. It's uh it's something that I benefited a lot from, especially as a teenager. Um there was some critical moments where I found the right person to help me where I was at that particular moment. And I would definitely like to be able to offer that opportunity to some other people. Um, and I have a lot of admiration for teachers. I think that's one of the absolute most valuable pursuits in life. And have directly benefited from encountering some really great teachers in my life, both in a formal sense and also just people I cross paths with and who have really helped me grow and understand life in a different way.
Totally. I mean, I doubt I'd be talking to you here if it wasn't for Mr. G, who, my teacher, like, what, a
Yeah.
year back almost, which is crazy to be thinking about. And I can imagine how cool that would be, like Mr. Turner's summer retreat and take like 4 or 5 middle schoolers into the woods and they come out like with all tattoos and different men or whatever. That'd be so cool, man. And speaking of your incredible tattoos, I need to again give you props because I DM'd you about this, but I mean, your merch is like mind blowing in a sense, and that is super materialistic to be thinking about. But sometimes I want a really sick ass long sleeve shirt because it
Yeah.
gets kind of cold down here sometimes, and when it's
Yeah.
raining, I just want something that looks really cool, and so I can show everyone that I have like sick music taste. Like I don't want to
Right.
wear no Nirvana shirt. So you got like the Sumac and like you can tell that you made it with your like signature tattoo designs and whatever. And it's just awesome. I don't think many bands come close to that level of merch. I wish they did, but they don't. So I do have to give you props on that. And when you're thinking of tattoos to make on people, which is like a lifelong decision, how do you feel so confident in your artistic decisions rather than, backing off and knowing that this is a permanent feature on someone's body?
I mean, I think part of it is just the experience of having been tattooed a lot myself, starting at a fairly young age. I got my first tattoo when I was 15, and subsequently accumulated quite a few more. And while tattoos are permanent, I have come to realize that in a certain way, not to trivialize them, but it's not one tattoo isn't necessarily going to be this life altering thing for people to the extent where, it changes the path of their life. And I also am operating under the assumption that people who are coming to me to get tattooed are already interested in the kind of work that I have to offer. So that's a good foundation for feeling comfortable in having that or undergoing that process with someone where they are entrusting you with doing something and you are fulfilling that role for them. Um, uh, it does take, well, I'll pass on another piece of wisdom, which came to me from one of my tattoo mentors, Casey Buxton, who owns the shop here on Vashon where I work. And he said you have to have a certain amount of ego to believe that you should be tattooing people. And I think that's accurate. Um, I mean, to think that it's okay for someone to wear your artwork permanently does necessitate having a level of ego that can get you to that point. Um, and that has to be counterbalanced with some humility as well to understand that someone is entrusting you with their body and that you have to do the best possible job you can for them at that particular moment. Um, Communication is key to basically any pursuit in life, but it's also key to the process of being tattooed or getting tattooed. I want to make sure as much as is possible when people um, prepare to sit to get something done that they're really advocating for themselves and speaking up about what they do and don't want, so that when we've concluded the project, they walk out feeling like they got what they were hoping for and that I did the best I could in terms of helping that happen. Um, so that I think there's a lot of things that go into it, and I definitely don't take it lightly. And as I said before, kind of balancing that out with the fact that a tattoo, unless you're doing just like a full body suit for someone top to bottom, is just a one piece of um somebody's journey with their body and their sense of their body and how they choose to present it to the world.
Have you ever done a full body?
I haven't. I definitely wouldn't at this point encourage anybody to pursue that length of a project with me. I just don't feel I've had enough experience to do that with someone. I have done at this point some things that are pretty close to full arm sleeves or leg sleeves, and that's a lot of fun for me, and I feel okay about doing that. But it would take it's another few steps to go from that to full body coverage, and I guess that I'll cross that bridge when I come to it, but hopefully it's a couple more years before somebody proposes that idea.
Just a few extra steps, nothing major. But
Right.
I think one day down the path, I would love to get a tattoo. My mom is not too psyched about that idea, but like my dad is a
Yeah,
real
usually parents of teenagers aren't too
no.
excited about that.
She every single time I show her something that someone who I'm working with or someone who I interviewed or someone whose house I went to speak with or a concert I went to, she sees these people and she's like, "Who the hell are you hanging out with? Are they druggies?" Or like she's got the drug scare mentality in a sense, which is nice that she loves me and I feel protected. But um, my dad has a really small tattoo in defiance of her mentality on him, right on his shoulder, just to like flash at her and be like, "Well, if he did it,
Well,
I think I can do it."
if you look at the people who are causing the most damage in the world, there tend to be the people who are on the level of appearance are the most conservative. So I think that the idea that, someone who, is covered in tattoos is a scary, bad individual. It's obviously not highly accurate.
Exactly.
Uh,
I've never met
but
a
I will say now that I have a child of my own, I can understand how a parent wouldn't want their child to mark their body. I almost hope that with our son, he just sees, he sees me with a lot of tattoos and his mom with some tattoos, and that just becomes like the thing that his parents are into, and he goes the other direction.
Yeah, that does tend to happen though. I mean, my mom is a physician, and I don't ever want it. That sounds like living hell. I don't want to be a physician, but I do want to be some kind of a doctor or a healer, you know?
Yeah,
That just seems so interesting in the sense that a musician heals with their music and tattooers or tattoo artists heal with their tattoos. I kind of want to heal with surgeries or with medicines.
yeah.
That just seems so fascinating to me. Um,
Well, it's definitely something that the world needs and benefits from, and the more people who have that intention through whatever their practice is, the better off we'll all be for sure.
oh yeah, for sure. Um, a kind of different question now, but something a little simpler because I'm out of like existential questions, which would be, what type of music are you listening to now? Any relatively small or new bands? And what are your favorite releases of 2024?
Oh boy. I listen to all kinds of music all the time. I'm definitely not stuck in one genre, and that's partially because that's just my own personal preference. And also, I think it's important for me as an artist to have my ears open to as many things as I encounter. Um, uh, I think one of the problems in terms of genre stagnancy is a lot of bands just get stuck in this rut where they're referencing things within their own genre over and over, and then it just becomes redundant. And for me, that's never the the plight of creative stagnation is like my worst nightmare. Really, I want to avoid that at all costs. And part of that process, as I said, is listening to a lot of different kinds of music. Um, so I don't know. I'm all over the place with what I'm into and what I may be listening to on a daily basis. Um, uh,
Did you hear the new High
just
and Fire?
Yes, and I've been looking forward to spending a little more time with that. Lately, I haven't been in the mood to listen to a lot of heavy stuff, and part of that is just been because I've been playing and practicing a lot, and hearing that, heavy drums and riffs and screaming and all that for those extended durations makes me want to go another direction with what I'm listening to. But actually, interestingly, this last tour we did, most of it was with a band called Chain to the Bottom of the Ocean, who are a three-piece. I'm sorry, a four-piece, and then a solo artist named White Boy Scream. And it was a really cool evening to get to have for 10 nights on the road, where Chain would open and they were pretty heavy and definitely dirty in their sound. And then White Boy Scream was in between. So it was this nice respite between two heavy bookends. And especially White Boy Scream was a great way to kind of relax and dive into a different mindset in the context of our shows. Um, the way she constructed her set was kind of one long flowing stream of sound with a lot of different movements within that. And the key aspect to her set was her voice. And she's got a really incredible voice. And it was just, as I said to her when the tour concluded, really great to be able to hear that on a nightly basis, just because it was enjoyable in its own right, and also just a nice way to open up my mind and push it in a different direction before getting on stage to play myself. Um, so actually, in the last couple of weeks, that's the music I've heard the most of, is those couple of bands. Um, the first show of the tour was the Vancouver Jazz Festival, and the night we played was just us and More Mother. And I've been listening to a lot of her music over the past 8 or so years. And her new record, The Great Bailout, has been getting a lot of play in the house around here since its release. And that's a new record from 2024, and I think it's definitely going to end up being one of my favorites of the year. Um, so those are some of the things that come to mind off the top of my head.
I mean, that what a beautiful collection of records, man. I was thinking some Miles Davis or something, but I completely relate to what you were talking about, the calm before the storm in a way. When we were graciously invited to Swans by Christoph Hahn, who was their slide player. He did a
Yep.
solo set before the show, and it was like ambient, and then he was doing some singing, and it was so peaceful and calming. And my dad thought that that was Swans. That's what Swans' music was, just very relaxed and enjoyable. And then, Swans come out, and immediately it's just like a complete wall of sound, and then like, hypnic chanting and completely different. But in a way, I think both really complemented themselves. So I can completely see where you're coming from. Um, Ice and Fire, like the complete opposites, but in a sense still connected by the destruction that they can cause. So I definitely see where you're going with that. Some great records, yeah.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's just always been interesting to try to find people who are like-minded in some way, or find a creative community where there are common interests, but the ways in which people's work manifests is quite different. And that's definitely a thing we've actively fostered, both in terms of how we construct our own music, but also who we choose to tour with. And for me, I think it's an evening of bands where it's all just like, even if the bands have, some stylistic divergence, if it's all just like rock bands that are riff based and all kind of operating on that same format, it's a lot less interesting than when you really mix it up and present some artists that can make sense in the same context, but are taking very different pathways to get there.
Exactly. That's what makes like for example, a vinyl collection like complete is like, honestly, I would hate it if my whole collection was just sludge or,
Yeah,
just one genre. Because what are you
for
gonna listen
sure.
to when it rains? Like when
Yeah,
it rains, I want to hear some jazz or one hear like
yeah,
surf rock. The last thing I
yeah.
want to be hearing is someone yelling in my ear when it rains. It's gonna make me feel even worse. The fact that
Yeah.
it's like, thundering and I can't go biking with my friends and then just makes me feel like crap. But when you have
Yeah.
some jazz playing in the background or even ambient, like Lost or and you have that playing, that brings me to peace. When I can't go to the Walmart with my friends, or I can't go to the Zaxby's. Um, like the power of music, which is like so interesting that music can be so life-changing, uh, and so passive at the same time. It's something I think about a lot. Music can be the forefront of your whole life and can be kind of centered, if you're a musician, but at the same time for the rest of the population, it's just I think that they don't think about that it's only present when you turn on the FM in your radio, which is I don't know, so crazy to think about that there's so many people in the world and yet half of us don't even think about music as being healing or powerful enough to do anything to your life and just something that flip a switch to play. Anyways, my ramble is over. uh Completely different now. Bob Ross, on a scale of 1 to 10, how cool was Bob Ross?
I don't know where I'd rate him exactly, but on the high end of the scale, the
So we're
guy
thinking like
clearly,
an 8.
yeah, somewhere around there. He was clearly just, um, or so it would seem. You never know what people are like behind the scenes, but he seemed just very comfortable being who he was and doing what he enjoyed doing, and it seemed to me like something that could definitely bring a lot of people joy, whether they were directly participating and inspired to paint themselves or whether they just enjoyed watching someone else paint. I mean, if you think about that in terms of the way, uh, you know, TV has evolved, um, the idea of just sitting and watching someone paint would be pretty radical at this point. I mean, I guess there's, Instagram and TikTok videos where people are probably doing that, but it would be more
About the
likely
same.
in the 30-second to 90-second range than a half-hour program where you get to watch someone complete a piece of art from start to finish. So I would definitely say he was a beneficial force in the world.
Of course. And it could all be a PR move. Maybe he was like, I hope not. I sincerely hope not, but he could be like this terrible guy behind the scenes. So the power of PR is truly like insane. But
Yeah, I've thought about that a lot, whether, what someone gives to the world and gives to a wide swath of the population offsets whatever monstrous behavior they may perpetuate behind closed doors. Ideally, people are operating on a level of kindness and conscientiousness in both scenarios. Um, But I guess in Bob's case, let's hope he really was who he appeared to be.
exactly. And it's kind of scary sometimes that you hear about a musician that you really enjoy and they're not a great person and they've done some bad stuff. And of course, there's always a time where you forgive. And if it isn't anything too bad, maybe it's a mistake, then you can always forgive and move on. But sometimes you can't, and sometimes it's something terrible. And that does linger with me that like your idols can switch in an instant. And I think more people need to have that in mind. But we're getting to our last question, and this is a big
Sure.
one. And if you need clarification, please feel free to ask. The question is, there's two ways. You can either do one thing, you can give me maybe a song or an album or whatever, but three. So a song, an album, whatever. But these can be any categories you want. So maybe a favorite tattoo person, someone you've tattooed, or or you could do three of one. So you could do three favorite people you've tattooed, or whatever you want that category to be, and it has to be to change someone's life. So one of three or three of one to change someone's life for the better or for the worse.
Yeah,
Five
I
minutes,
need
36
I need
seconds.
a little clarification here.
Yeah.
Give me an example if you were to do it.
Um, I'd say John Dwyer would be. I would do three of one, so I'd say John Dwyer is my Completely changed the outcome of my interviewing career. You could see it as the most popular interview and uh, completely opened so many doors for me. I would say, I would say my teachers from school
Yeah.
for screwing her out with my music taste and getting me addicted to this stuff. And I'd say my parents for making me play piano, even though I hated it at a young age, and then moving on to violin, which I really love, and then guitar, which I really, really love. So that's how I do it.
So those are three people. You chose three people who have impacted your life in significant ways.
Yeah.
And so what would be so that's option A. What's option B?
Or you could just, so I did basically three people, or you could
Yeah.
do a person, an album, and something else. So just
Okay.
three completely non-connected things.
Okay.
I gotta find a better way to describe that, man.
Okay. Well, I mean, just having this little discussion is interesting too. Um, boy, that's
Loaded.
yeah.
It's a good baked potato. It's got sour cream. It's got
Well,
cheese. It's got
I'm
bacon.
just gonna do three off the top of my head. And they kind of fall in into some of the same categories or along the same thematic lines that we've been discussing. One would be my partner, Faith Colochia. Um, she and I have been together, I think, about 15 years now. And I encountered her creative work before I knew her as a person. And I really enjoyed the way that she approached making music, which was within kind of the context of the art world more than the music world, and playing with a lot of ideas about how to occupy a space while you're making it, how to subvert that space, how to subvert the lines between audience and creator. And then I got to know her as a person, and she's really inspired me to try harder as an artist, but also to work harder at being a kind and compassionate human. The second would be my son, Ashley, who's 7 now, who has done a lot of those same things where he's really made me question the way I see the world, question the way that I um, go about being a person in the world, um, and has given me a mirror to kind of look at a lot of the things that I've struggled with and figure out how I can use what I've learned from that to help guide him, and also to work on and ultimately heal some things within myself. He's taught me a lot about patience and a lot about compassion, and it's been really invaluable. Um, and then I'm thinking back to my high school art teacher, Gary Myers, who is one of these people that's just truly inspiring and helped reach a lot of kids who are otherwise totally disenchanted with school and totally disconnected from the process of learning. And he figured out what kids had within them that made them excited, made them curious, made them want to express themselves. And he reached me at a time where I was totally disenchanted with school and just felt like it was more of a chore than anything to be there. And during my class periods with him, I really did become engaged and did get excited and did learn and grew a lot in a very short period of time. And not only that, he was just a really likable person, and he clearly cared about his kids. And I think that's a hard thing to do. It's really hard to be in an environment where you are challenged by the amount of people you have to teach. You're challenged by the administration around you. You're challenged by the expectations and sometimes the aggression of parents who, you know, want you to do a certain thing to make their child turn out a certain way. It's a lot. And I have a few siblings who are, who have been educators throughout their adult lives. And so I have a kind of intimate view of what that entails. And it just gives me even more respect and admiration for what my high school art teacher did for me and did for so many other kids.
Oh, incredible. I have like 10 seconds and I don't want to get cut off by stupid Zoom. Screw you, Zoom. Thank you so